The idea that Enrique Tarrio crafted a memo outlining or they 3 months featured witness evidence featured Tarrio and co-defense included videos, thousands of messages in encrypted chat groups, as well as a public message on Parler. On or before January 6th, Tarrio convened a Ministry of Self-Defense to coordinate Proud Boys leadership on January 6th. The chat showed that Tarrio, stationed in Baltimore, encouraged the Proud Boys as they attacked the Capitol. Let's figure out what that encouragement was. Are they going to actually say in the article? So here's a citation. Proud Boy and 3 other members of the far-right groups were convicted Thursday in a plot to attack the Capitol. A jury in Washington, D.C. found Tarrio and 3 lieutenants guilty of seditious conspiracy after hearing dozens of witnesses. Jurors cleared a 5th defendant, Dominic Pizzola, on a citizen charge, and a significant milestone of the Justice Department, which is now secured a conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. They will never stop. Okay, that's interesting. Wikipedia asserts that they did this, but there's actually nothing in the news article that actually states that is true. Well, now we got a problem. Let's try this again. Let's try a secondary source. Let's see. There it is. They introduced evidence that Tarrio discussed with associates a plan to have a large crowd in Washington storm government buildings in a scheme they called 1776 returns, in which the Winter Palace was used as an apparent code for the U.S. Capitol. In a message, he said, make no mistake, we did this, do what must be done, and he directed the Proud Boys to do it again. So the question then becomes, in the bigger picture...
So are you going to at all acknowledge that you just blew up over something that I was absolutely citing fairly?
I don't think you cited it fairly.
I think people should be prosecuted for engaging in plans to overthrow our government. That's kind of
that's a very loose definition of plans to overthrow the government.
Y'all don't seem to be that informed.
Wait, look, respectfully, I cover a lot of protests and riots. A lot of people try to protest and riot and occupy government buildings. Do you think that qualifies as trying to, overthrow your government?
No.
Okay, good. So, I mean...
but if they had a plan to take control of the government, which was this one.
If this was an actual plan, this was the leastly poorly,
most over the government?
Ridiculous plan ever. They went after people for having Lego sets of the Capitol. Yeah. I mean, the level of political prosecution here, would you even admit that there was some level of politics when it came to the prosecution of the J6ers? Would you say politics played a role in this?
Engaging with this as thoughtfully as possible, not trying to grandstand. Of course, often, for very justifiable reasons, prosecutors will try to make an example of someone who, for example, tried to overthrow the government to prevent the peaceful transfer of power. I see why such a thing,
personally, I reject
categorized as sedition,
to overthrow the government,
would be uniquely bad to prosecutors. And political in that this all involved politics, right? And thus...
I'm sorry, I have to say this. The Wikipedia article making those claims is not citing any actual proof that they said those things.
Because we're harping on these pardons. Pardons are obviously an interesting political, constitutional quirk that presidents are able to do that. It really does undermine the law in our country. But Biden's getting a lot of pushback for clemency that he granted for the Cash for Kids judge who was responsible for sending something like 2,000 children into a Pennsylvania jail, a private prison that he was getting kickbacks for. Do you think that was worse than any pardon Donald Trump could give to any January 6th rioter?
What?
Have you heard of this judge that Joe Biden granted clemency for? A judge who was responsible for sending thousands of teenagers to prison for, otherwise misdemeanor charges while he was getting kickbacks for. Joe Biden was getting a lot of pushback for this because
I've been agreeing with a lot.
So have you heard?
I'm not going to make
this guy specifically.
I've heard of that, but I'm not as read in on it as I should be to speak on it. But
I wonder if
I was more focused on just because it was the big story, and I wanted to again advocate principle. His Hunter Biden pardon, which has been the topic of discussion pardon-wise for us mostly.
Yeah, it was funny because you were telling us a little bit pre-show that you actually had a first-hand experience with Hunter Biden. I don't know, can you tell us anything about your experience firsthand with?
Yeah, just at the holiday
party. And the myth, the legend. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew somebody at the White House who invited me to the White House party, the holiday party. Hunter Biden was there. I found it kind of strange.
I feel like
what was it? I'm sorry. What was his reception?
Right, dude. Who cares? There's that saying that if you're not liberal when you're young, you have no heart, and if you're not conservative when you're old, you have no head. But the interesting thing about it is, like, what we define as conservative or liberal are amorphous, right? So, like, what does it mean to be conservative? Who wants to try and explain what conservative is?
Traditional, hierarchical, individualistic are the general ideals that it trends towards.
What does liberal mean?
Like Enlightenment ideas, vaguely. Free speech, God.
And then why is it that the colloquial liberal are the authoritarians in this country?
Because they're not liberals. Because Rush Limbaugh in the 90s ruined the word liberal.
So, like,
I obviously disagree with that, but
well, so lockdowns. Let's try lockdowns. Let's start there. Government lockdowns were largely a liberal phenomenon.
well, initially it was right and left.
Initially, it was Trump
supported too.
for 2 weeks, and then
It was more than 2 weeks.
no. The initial thing was 2 weeks to slow the spread.
Oh yeah.
And that was Trump who did that. And then it resulted in basically everybody locking down, but it was the right that ultimately started letting up. And so you ended up with vaccine mandates, mask mandates, which shifted largely into a liberal.
Yeah.
That's why I say left instead.
Agreed.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.